Good morning. It's a beautiful day in New York City, and as always, there's issues on my mind. Never fails. We're never going to be perfect, so there's always going to be a problem. But we've got a huge problem in the country today. We're thinking of each of us according to our identity, who we are, rather than what do we want, what could we produce, and what are the new ideas we can come up with to propel our country forward and to give us a better lifestyle, a healthier lifestyle, and a quality of life that's equivalent to the OECD countries. At the very least, a lot of us are living longer, but a lot of us aren't. And their quality of life is abysmal. And you can thank small government and the Petro and corporate state. We're not going in the right direction at all. America has become a country that is governed by the corporation. Everything we do is for corporate power and money. They control our lives. The American Diabetic Association takes money from Splenda, about $1 million a year. Well, they also hired a young woman to make up recipes for diabetics, and she was doing a great job. But one of the things she couldn't do was recommend that in most of her recipes, she add 1/3 of a cup of Splenda. And because she wouldn't add that to her recipes, they fired her. She's suing. But that's corporate power. The American Diabetic Association, shame for firing someone because they wouldn't use a corporate sponsor's money and product because they didn't feel it was right. We've come a long way from the 70s. In the 70s, before I went to Ford Motor Company, I interviewed at Philip Morris. They wanted me to be an editor of their research papers. I wasn't that impressed with their research, one, but the other thing that they wanted me to do was to smoke cigarettes. I couldn't smoke cigarettes. I saw the impact of cigarette smoking on my family. For me, it was a no-brainer. It would have been a good job when I wanted a job, but I couldn't take it. Then they were influencing their employees. Now, corporations want to influence the entire country's population, and then some. And we're all held hostage to the corporation. There's not one industry that isn't a monopoly. And they have the power to deny people water breaks and cooling breaks in the heat. People can't complain. The NLRB, who would help people, is overwhelmed and understaffed. That's what corporate power can do. And so people die, and they think that they're alone. But they're not alone. In every industry, there is an egregious abuse of power for the sake of accumulating corporate money and profits. You don't like AI in the insurance industry because you notice that it's anti-consumer? You're fired. You're over the age of 50 and you understand corporations and how they work? You're not even hired. Ageism is a fact of life in this country. It's a dirty little secret that so many of us parents are actually paying for children. We're paying for young kids who can't get good jobs, and we're paying for adult children because they're being discriminated against. And realistically, all we got to do is break up the corporate state. We break it up, we start doing new things. I understand our country is envious of China going into Latin America and flooding Latin America with electric vehicles, lithium-ion batteries, and solar panels. So Latin America is going to go renewables. Instead of being envious, we should say, okay, we're going to go renewables too. There's nothing wrong with our inventiveness. There's nothing wrong with our ability to create. If China can do it, we can do it. And then we can export it to India. They have almost zero methodologies to combat the rising heat. And because of the rising heat, the entire globe is suffering. Today, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and the Gulf states have been flooded. That means whatever crops they had, it's now underwater. For them, inflation is going to be actual because they don't have the crops anymore. They've been flooded out. In our country, our inflation is totally artificial. It's just like our job numbers. Artificial. When we look at employment, you realize it's the corporation that puts in the numbers on a monthly basis, or whatever the basis is that the country and the government request. I know. I used to fill out the job numbers. Whenever I could, I filled them out. So now if I did it and the government relied on me, what do you think they're doing with GM and Ford and Kroger and everyone else? Those numbers aren't real. They're phony numbers. And could we move forward? You bet. I keep saying we give $1 trillion to the fossil fuel industry. Wouldn't that $1 trillion go a long way in creating infrastructure and other renewable products that we need in this country so that we don't die from the heat? We don't die from lack of water. We don't die from pollution. And that's just one way to get money and reduce inflation. Another way is to start taxing folks who are making or have assets of 40 million and up. There are about 800 to 1,000 billionaires in this country. They have over $5.3 trillion. We get another $1 trillion and hey, we can have universal health care and Social Security in perpetuity. So don't think identity, folks. Think we're all people and we can do better. And there's a lot of untapped money out there that will help us survive and thrive.